So we should be live again. I am very sorry for the interruption. Sometimes this happens. It's a very, very brief internet flaw which messes up the whole live stream. As usual in my interviews in English, I'll do a small introduction in Portuguese just to warn the Portuguese. Let me just check if we are back live. So, bye. Já estaremos ao vivo. No, you drive. You interruption. This sometimes. Okay, we are live again. So we'll just have to wait for Mr. War in Ukraine, Anonymous from Ukraine, which has a channel on YouTube, which is on the description of the video, and which makes thorough analysis of the situation in Ukraine, both militarily and economical and political. And we just have to wait a little bit. For that, I am truly sorry. And because the conversation was actually we were going about some of the strong arguments. Hello, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Okay, I already put the live stream live again, and let me just put this. Okay, it doesn't make much difference but at least it's something here on the screen besides my ugly head.
Okay.
Okay. So going back to John Mearsheimer, please continue.
So going back to John Mearsheimer, so his logic is actually, I'm surprised that most people don't see flaw. It's not even logic. It's like, that's why I'm saying he's pseudo scientist, because his logic is based on this. Okay, whoever has the power should use that power and abuse that power to the most extent possible. That's his logic, because what it says, okay, Russia has a power. We don't have enough power to counteract Russia in Ukraine. Therefore, Russia should be able to do whatever they want with Ukraine, with as long as they whatever, just if they can do something to Poland, that they should do that. If they want to do something to Romania, they should do it, and no problem. So if we translate this logic into relationship between sort of people, then let's say, okay, if I follow that logic, right, and I am somewhere near John and I just don't like him, I have a power, I'll just punch him in the face, beat him down, and potentially kill him, right? Because I can. That's his law. That's whole his logic. That's what is based.
What about when
he's basically advocating going to the dark times, right? From the same logic, then U.S. should probably nuke China and don't think twice, because it can. It can destroy China, and look, U.S. should nuke Russia, destroy Russian government and take all natural resources in Russia, because it can. It can easily do that. There's no problem.
Yes, but
I mean, technically, right? The problem also may be psychologically if people can do it, but if I were in charge of US, right? If and I follow his logic, we need US needs resources, right? And Europe, let's say, needs resources, right? So then Europe should nuke Russia. It has probably 1/8 of the entire world resources, having just population of probably less than 1%. That's the logic, right? Like, therefore, we should nuke Russia, destroy the Russia, and take the resources out of it. That's the logic that he's following, and I totally disagree with that logic. That's a logic of a gangster, and that also tells that he is siding with that logic internally. Speaks about his character as a person in the first place, that he's a moral person, and that's probably why. Usually, from my experience, people who work with Russian intelligence, usually some kind of like either morally corrupt people or just greed, pure money. And so this is example. That's why I'm pretty sure that he is working with the Russian intelligence, and he's basically their talking head. And he's not the only one. Believe me, there are more in the US.
I know, but
like Tulsi Gabbard, right? She was actually the contender for US presidency.
Yes, I know her.
She's another, call it, and she was probably correctly called Russian asset. Let's call it Russian asset.
At some point, she was actually called by a journalist, which name I don't recall, but it's a famous scene because she went on Joe Rogan show and called her Assad puppet or something in service of Assad.
Well, she's basically, I mean, like, look, you don't need to, like, you will never be able to establish 100% connection of how she receives money or how she receives whatever she receives, right? But even from sort of, you can make this logical conclusions from how she acts, what she does. She's not acting in the interest of the US. And actually, I'll tell you more. There are many reasons why these people sort of join this Russian bandwagon is that they actually hate their own society. The big part of motivation is actually not so much for the money, but they hate their own societies. And that's why they join this whole, like, and the money just actually additional sort of reward for actually venting their anger at their own society.
Let me ask you something. What about the history of the NATO organization? For example, NATO was there to counter the Warsaw Pact, and
it was to counter Soviet Union. Let's just not use, because this is actually also kind of fake construct. Warsaw Pact. It was Soviet Union.
Yes,
really, because the Soviet Union forced all of those people. You can ask Polish people; they hated that Warsaw Pact. They were slaves there, right?
Yeah,
everybody.
The bloc, the Soviet bloc.
Soviet Union. It was Communist Party organized the RAM to destroy the rest of the West.
Okay, so but then Soviet Union disintegrated or ceased to be as a Soviet Union, and one of the things that arguments in the West, people in the West argue, is that all the politics on NATO behalf after that has been expansionist towards Russia's border, and Russia sees this as a menace to his national security. What is your take on this discussion?
This is exactly the same flawed logic of Mischheimer, right?
Yes.
It's like, Spain is saying, you know what, Portugal is a menace to our existence. Let's destroy Portugal, right? By the way, I remember I read somewhere in like Chinese sort of circles, they were discussing why is Portugal existing, because here's a much larger Spain. In their view, the Spain should have long time ago conquered Portugal and basically, re-engineered Portugal to become a Spain. I'm just saying the mentality and logic of that part of the world that you should understand. Like they're thinking in a way. That's what I'm saying. They're thinking from the times from about 500 years ago, how things were, and they still mentally, culturally stuck in that time. Even though they look Polish, they look as if they wear nice suits, they drive in a nice cars, they look as if they are like sort of normal people. But really what you need to understand is what's in the head, the cultural perspective that the person holds, and the cultural perspective of the person, of like a barbaric person of 500 years ago. And so that's what you really need to understand. In terms of the NATO versus the Warsaw Pact. So first of all, I think all of those countries wanted to be in the NATO very much. Not sort of the NATO came and conquered Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, all of those countries. They wanted to be there because they have seen oppression from their Russian communists, let's put this way, and they want to make sure that this never happens to them again. Sort of similar to how the like Israel and Jewish people think about this whole concentration camps and Hitler and everything. They want to make sure that this doesn't happen again to them. That's why they chase them down. They chase everyone who is, having any sort of like Nazi leaning and everything, because they understand that they don't want this to happen to them again. So the same goes true for like Polish people. And if we assume that by saying that this is Russian area of influence, we're assuming that, let's say Czech or Russian or Polish or whatever people, that they have no right for self-determination, that they are slaves to be traded between the two sides. I think this is wrong morally.
Yes, I understand that point of view, and I actually think I must say that I do not agree 100% with you say, but as a
that's fine.
As a Democrat, I truly respect your opinion. I do not deny it also 100%. There are many things that are raising doubts on my head, and I'll have to think
I
about
think the most important is this conversation, where I would be actually curious to hear, like, sort of you saying I have doubts, and I don't, it would be probably helpful to your viewers to understand, poke holes in my argument, I guess.
Yes, so I will try to do that. So so we are talking now about U.S. Policy and a point of view to the U.S. policy, and for example, we have seen many wars perpetrated by leadership of the United States in name of NATO, that I don't even talk morally, but morally, of course, horrendous, like, for example, Libya, like, for example, the two wars in Iraq, invasion of...
This is, sorry to interrupt you, this is the point that you sort of taking, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying.
Okay.
I do agree. There's a lot of immoral things done by the U.S. leadership, right? But this is not about U.S. or Russia. It's about, let's say, Czech people, Polish people. Do you see what I mean? That they have right for self-determination, the same as Ukrainian people.
100%.
It's like someone denies Portugal right to exist, right? Because they start saying, oh, this is war between, let's say, and it's not the case, but between US and Russia, and therefore, for that reason, Portugal should be in the area of interest or influence of the US, and so it should be US puppet. Right?
Well,
this is the same. This is exactly denying the right for Portugal people right for self-determination. It shouldn't be that way. If that happens, I would say this is wrong. The same way it's wrong with all of this, Lithuania, Latvia, all of these people who want to be independent from Russia. They're not Russian. They're not even close to Russians.
Yes,
they're very different, like ethnically, from all, like at DNA level. They like to extend huge difference, right?
Yes,
and. Look, I tell you more, like, U.S. probably forced Japan to attack U.S., right? There's a lot of immoral things that's been done in World War II.
Yes, right? In World War II, yeah.
Reason Japan didn't want to attack U.S. They never had that idea, but U.S. created like oil embargo, and they were suffocating Japanese economy. Japan as a country. Yes. And they were sort of backed into the corner to attack, right? They were never true ally of Germany, by the way. They never a true friend of Germany.
Yes,
and they were forced to be in this boat, right? By because US was pursuing its own interest in the Pacific, and this is wrong. But that's the whole point of the why the truth is important, and ability to admit, like saying, hey, I did wrong things and I shouldn't do that, and that's what makes you better and stronger person, as opposed to saying, oh, that's all okay, and that's what propaganda does. That's why hopefully you understand the link now better between why propaganda is wrong versus the truth is what the right path, and the solution to not having wars in general, or having fewer wars.
Yes, true. If you give the proper tools for people to be able to think and discern between the information they get, I'm sure there would be much less wars. You wouldn't be able to motivate people to go and kill each other so easily.
Exactly.
So I do understand that perfectly. But I have to address a point that you made about when you use Portugal as a comparison, and Portugal, Portugal being a U.S. puppet. Well, it actually is a U.S. puppet. And
that's wrong. Look.
Yes.
And even if you feel that way, okay, I totally support Portugal like having its own self-determination. Right?
No, this is just. I want to go back to this.
No. But look.
Yeah. Okay.
What
go
I'm
ahead.
trying to say.
Go ahead.
It doesn't mean that we should accept status quo. That's where it all starts. Like, oh, we are let's say in Ukraine, we're puppets of Russia for all of this, whatever, 300 years. Therefore, we should be.
Mm-hmm.
No, we shouldn't be, and we should not be. Ukraine should not be puppet of the U.S. equally, right? It should be its own country with its own destiny. Yes. But that's the whole point I'm trying to make.
Yes, I've interviewed recently, a couple of months ago, an Ukrainian man that lives in Portugal. He came here quite young, still a teenager. He's not that old. He's still a young man, but he came like in 2013 or something. And he gave me a perspective of Ukraine because he still has family and contacts there. Mm-hmm. And he gave me this perspective that the whole Ukraine environment is poisoned by this government that resulted after the 2014, and there is actually no democracy in Ukraine. And this actually helps kind of the arguments from the East against Ukraine about this denazification. And what can you say about this, please?
Okay, so look, there is a lot of problems inside of Ukraine. There is no question about it, right? And probably the reason he left Ukraine because it's all corrupt, and corruption goes hand in hand with there's like very little democracy. So you can, but it's not certainly not Russia. Certainly not Russia. And to extent, I think the way he presented it, it really tells me that, so to really fully understand.
He gave me concrete examples, like, for example, if you post, if you post something, for example, pro-communist in the social networks in Ukraine, you get visited by the SPU or the local police or some militias.
And that's possible because in my view, I totally agree that that communist is totalitarian party that wants to do genocide. That's the goal of that party. Similar as you would do with the Nazis. So that's Ukraine lived through that. Ukraine lost at least 10 million people due to by actual killings of by communists, right? So there's a lot of people in Ukraine who were part of that regime. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
And now they're I would say children and grandchildren, they're not happy because they had privileged status in the society.
Okay.
When the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of them lost that privileged status. You see what I mean? And a lot of them left for the West, right? In the search of, and the way they left for the West, they first of all looted through the corruption a lot of money from Ukraine, and then they went to the West. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I see.
So then they go and then they present that, and the way they present it, I don't have a freedom of speech. And my freedom of speech means that, I should establish communist regime and kill people again. That's what he's again admitting the whole situation. Do you see what I mean?
Yes. But
you cannot the problem in the West is there is not recognition that Communist Party did a lot of crimes against the humanity, much worse than actually Nazis did in Germany. There is a lot of that, and the reason for that is because they they sided with the allies during World War II against the Germany. So as a result, there was like, hush, hush, we're not going to talk about all of the crimes that were done by communists because they were our allies. So we kind of like in the same boat. So you see what I mean?
Yes.
There's a lot of suppression of that truth. But in Ukraine, it's not. Everybody knows, everybody had people who suffered from it or get killed in very most brutal ways. And I'm not saying just Ukrainians. This has been done against the Russians as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is, in a way, this party is not really representing. They did essentially like social engineering of the entire sort of former Russian Empire by killing a lot of people there. Mm-hmm. So the losses during the Civil War were higher than the losses in World War I by 10 times.
Yes.
So you understand. So like, let's say Russian Empire lost about, I don't remember exact number, but like about 2 million people in World War I, right?
Yes. Yes.
During the Civil War, there were about 20 million people killed.
Mm-hmm.
By communists, but obviously the first it was started by communists, and then later, once they established it, they continued cleansing of the population.
Can I read you a comment from a listener?
Sure. Yeah.
David K. Elkins says, I find your guest to be quite the propagandist for the globalist agenda. Why just enough of the truth to reel in the unsuspecting? I appreciate your allowing your guest to reveal its blatant bias to the poisons he's thinking. I'm sure you must have that.
Where's globalist? Where's my globalist when I'm saying that the U.S. did wrong thing by forcing, Japan into the war? Where's the globalism when I say U.S. did many wrong things, and where I'm saying that Democratic Party is meddling in the Ukrainian sort of, internal politics and everything, and they sort of trying to influence it in their own ways, because Democratic Party is the representative of this global world order, right?
Yes.
And so how does that jive? Like, I can tell you that's some kind of like fake profile by KGB out there.
Okay. It's really, I must say.
No, but I'm factual. Like, I just give you facts, right?
Of course. I must say.
Let him, ask him like, hey, what do you respond to those facts?
He is listening to the conversation, so
no, I know, but
probably.
Like, I'm let's just
yes.
We discuss this. Let's have an honest discussion.
Of course, and
I'm saying, if Portugal is a puppet of US, then the Portugal should find internal will not to be a puppet of the US.
That's Portugal, very difficult.
I respect right of Portugal for self-determination, but what I'm saying is, you might be laughing for it, but
no, I'm not pleased.
But this is the right thing to do.
This
right in any case, like and probably the problem with majority of population that's sort of like oblivious and doesn't care and just want to live the way it is. That's where it all stems from.
But
that we discussed that 50% of population that doesn't care about anything.
Me smiling, please. I mean, no disrespect.
No, but I'm just telling you that where it's all coming from. Why you feel that Portugal is puppet, why there is the similar problem in Ukraine, but the how to say. The problem with Ukraine, that's sort of very different from Portugal, because Portugal is kind of like located on the not dead end in a bad way, but like just kind of like there is nothing. There's just the sea, right? And Spain.
Yes.
So you don't have you kind of like naturally protected in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
So in Ukraine, it's not. Ukraine is kind of like a passage from the east to Europe, and always been.
It always been, yes.
And always been for 1,000 years. Well, not even 1,000, for 2,000 years. And the same goes true actually for Poland, and then Germany is kind of like final destination. And so Ukraine is the first one usually to get hit. Okay. Then if Ukraine gets penetrated, then Poland is going to get hit second. And if Poland is penetrated, then the final sort of round will end up in Germany.
but do you think? But if that happened, I believe that hypothetically, if imagine Ukraine would fall in the next few days, and then an operation would start in Poland. But wouldn't that trigger immediately Article 5, Third World War coming, end of the world? Wouldn't it be?
Look, we don't know what it's good. It's just speculation, right?
Okay.
I feel a lot of unwillingness, and we're gonna see that NATO is not such a unified things.
No, I don't think.
You will see that it may fall apart. It may easily fall apart.
Well,
I mean, you already see Turkey effectively. It's not acting as its piece of like part of one. Like it's acting as if just like, we just want to get benefits out of it, whatever we can, and it's just we're just kind of like a free rider in this system. And I'm sure there are other countries there that's similar.
Yes,
you will see that it's going to fall apart. So who knows? Look, you remember like World War II, right?
Yes.
Where the Poland had the agreement.
With the West, yes, France and England, yes.
France and England so they will defend. Did they? It was a funny war, right?
Yeah.
They still didn't want to defend. They only started fighting when actually Germany invaded France. Destroyed the France,
yes,
and then tried to destroy England, right? So that's the only way. Like, so I think something similar is gonna happen with the NATO, and I think Russia also probably understands that. They fully aware of weaknesses of the West. They're not dumb. They intelligent people there. That's not there are a lot of like movies where it's represent like former like Soviet sort of army soldiers or like as a dumb idiots. It's not. They are in many ways much more intelligent than the counterparties in the West.
Well, at least
not always and not everything, but I'm saying they should not be viewed as just a bunch of idiots there. Because yes, there are idiots. There is no question about it.
everywhere.
They're everywhere. But there's a lot of very intelligent people there on that side.
Yes, I actually I think I agree completely with what you are saying, and I also can fully understand your view if you just allow me to give a little perspective.
No, please do. Sorry, I'm just like I try to respond to this.
And it's good. It's good. I mean,
fake person out there, and I'm pretty sure there's no responses from him right now.
No, there is.
There is.
You
mind continuing?
Yes.
How about the comments about Democratic Party in Ukraine and all of that?
I didn't want to prolong that, but as if you ask me, and you are the guest,
where you see the truth, right?
Yes.
That's the whole point of like who's lying.
He says that those arguments that you point out when you call out the Democratic Party in the West and things that NATO did, he says that's the bits of truth that real Indians suspecting. So
expecting what?
That's the bits of truth that real Indians suspecting. So it means that's the bits of truth that cover your role as a propagandist.
Okay.
I'm not calling you propagandist.
I guess his view is just that Ukraine is Russian area of influence. How that is not Russian view is very interesting to me.
No, it actually started because with this listener of ours, all due respect to everyone, and he because of your arguments on Tulsi Gabbard. Because
that was his response.
No, before in the preview, when we were talking just minutes before, you told you described Tulsi Gabbard as this somehow paid agent from Russia.
It's the same as John Mearsheimer.
And he disagreed with that, and I think that's where it all started.
And now even more probably Henry Kissinger in the same boat.
You think so?
He's actually a Soviet spy from the long time, from the 70s.
You think so? That's okay. I really.
That's what's circulating in their sort of like circles here.
Okay.
And and a lot of things that were circulating ended up being true. So I obviously, and the way he's saying what he's proposing and whatever he was doing all like throughout his history, you can see that was kind of like concessions to the Soviet Union in many ways.
Yes, the latest speech he gave.
And not even like in the past as well, like actually during Soviet time.
Okay.
So I would not be surprised, and we probably will never find out. But my assumption, that's obviously I don't have, and I will never have. Nobody will ever have. Hey, here's a record, here's a signature. I'm a Russian spy. You will never get anything like that.
Of course.
And you have to base on the actions of the person. That's the only way to see the truth and to really understand who is who.
I just
sorry, and I'm taking away from your opportunity. I'm just trying to respond to this kind of like allegations that I'm sort of like globalist when I'm trying to say, and you saw like previous videos when I'm talking about the problems with this renewable energy, right? That this is and essentially energy policy mistake in the West.
Okay.
Right? That's totally goes against this globalist stuff, right? Because that's who is pushing that agenda, right?
Okay, let's talk about energy.
I'm clearly calling it a mistake and a bad thing.
Can we move a little bit to energy? I was about to make the defense of, but I think there's no point making the defense of a communist, not the Communist Party, of a Communist Party, because in Portugal this party has different history and different values and so it cannot be compared. It cannot be compared.
This is, you just haven't seen them in action. You were just you just heard their fairy tale stories.
I'm right now I'm smiling because I am part of that organization. But
that's okay. That's okay. You hopefully look. At some point, I was also like, the Communist Party is like, we're doing everything great for the people, and until you see the actions.
Okay.
So, and you have not had the opportunity to see the actions.
Well, actually, we had during the revolution in '74.
Okay, well, I don't know much enough of history.
Okay, so please
of Portugal, so it's hard for me to say. But what I'm saying is, what I mean is, if Communist Party were in power, what would happen? You don't understand, and you haven't seen that. Actually, who had seen a little bit of it is your neighbor Spain in the 30s.
Before the Civil War.
People and before the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
How they were cleansing and killing people there.
Well,
I'm not saying those people were perfect people, but it was completely, it was not right. It was not right solution for the problem. Let's put this way.
I think,
and they were manipulated by they were always Communist International. So always they were basically puppets of the KGB or NKVD at that time and basically puppets of Stalin, right? So the whole system that it was intentionally created by the Soviet Union, basically financed, because as how to say, part of that system, people in the Soviet Union were very upset. Why are we financing those communist parties around the world? I had a relative who was sent to fight in Angola. Not relative, but like close friend of the family.
Yes,
he was flying on a helicopter and shooting innocent people until he got shot by whatever response from the guerrilla, right? And still survived, but his co-pilot got killed. But I saw it from within what it was. It was not it wasn't how to say, best intentions. Let's say they were not there to liberate, and he was like, yeah, he was explaining, we were there to liberate people of Angola from oppression of the West and all of that stuff. You know what I mean? And he was killing people of Angola. It's like the famous US general in Vietnam: to save the village in Vietnam, we must destroy the village.
You mean General Westmoreland?
I don't remember the name, but he was exactly thinker of the communist thinking. That's what they were doing as well.
Well, I would not. I am sure that we can probably make another live stream only just dedicated to these various international historical issues. And I would really much like to go on this trend of thought, but I want to get.
That's fine.
I want to back to you. Yeah. I want to get back to Ukraine and to the actually the object of your work and your YouTube channel, if you don't mind. But of course we can always
go. I agree with you. We sort of deviated because
we deviated a little bit, and it's easy to deviate when we talk about. I can see that you're also very passionate about this subject, and
well, if I were not passionate, I would not do that channel. That's a drive behind the channel.
Yes,
it's not making any kind of like money to compensate for the time that's being spent to gather information.
Okay, so what do you think about the reaction from the West to all this war, and do you agree with this escalation, ever increasing escalation from the West, whether it be sanctions, whether it be financial and military aid? Do you think that's the road to peace, or what way do you see? How do you see that?
So, first of all, let's just actually sort of dissect this whole thing, because again, it's a complex situation where a lot of things are mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
So let's first think about the sanctions, right? I mentioned it many times. They are completely misguided. They totally not working in the wrong direction. And the part of it is because they are, again, is agenda of the Democratic Party. So they basically pushing their own political agenda as opposed to really solving the problem in terms of sanctions.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically trying to make oil and any sort of conventional natural resources super expensive to sort of justify why we need to switch to renewables, which they still don't work because it's physics. Laws of physics are not going to be changed by Democrats, not going to be changed by anyone.
Yes, by ideology.
By ideology.
Yes.
They still laws of physics. And the cheapest way to drive the economy is the fossil fuel, whatever the people want to say about it, but that's reality and the truth,
mm-hmm.
physical, factual truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was driven by that for the most part. So that's about the sanctions, right? And the rest of the sanctions, they are really inconsequential for Russia. They're not really creating problems. I mean, they are creating problems, but they are, they could have been done like much faster, much stricter, that really suffocated Russian economy if there is desire to stop the war in somewhat peaceful way.
But
right?
Could you do that without suffocating the Western economy?
That's the whole question. And that's a problem that, yes, you're going to damage Western economies severely, but that's the only reasons. That's the only reason for that is because of the prior errors in policy that's being done in the West.
Mm-hmm.
So now West sits on a ticking bomb of tons of debt, destroyed conventional energy producers, and so it's super vulnerable. Right? So that you put yourself in a horrible situation to implement sanctions by own and literally Putin is literally ridiculing there, laughing at like Europe. Yes. So I don't want to like use what he was drawing analogies between like LGBT and alternative energy. He was joking. He was playing joke around that.
Yes.
Yes. But and so he's fully, deeply understands the problems of the West, the current situation.
Do you think Russia understands better the problems of the West than the West politicians themselves?
I would say so. Okay. In many ways. I'm not saying everybody is stupid in the West. There are people who are intelligent about this, but they so far are removed from power. They've been pushed away, marginalized, and so on. So then you have these people who, to a large extent, don't know what they're really doing. They're doing whatever works for them to get elected.
I think that is actually the role of a puppet, wouldn't you say?
Fair, maybe. And he understands that. The bigger problem is that he understands that. That's why he does not have respect to all of these people because he knows that they just, like how to say, like cards, like when you shuffling cards, right?
Yeah,
There's
yes.
going to be new one who has no idea, just like really short-term thinker for a year or two and gone, and there's like new one, and he just like he knows that that's what where the strategy comes, that he has long-term strategy, and this really means that there is no real long-term strategy, and you just doing this like short-term thinking, and in the end you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose if you do that way to any long-term strategy. Right? The Russia has its own a lot of internal problems. Why? Because if you do this and you were decent in the first place, you would long time ago destroy the West. But the problem is that Russia itself is hugely flawed. So even basically it's like a fight of two flawed individuals in many ways. One is flawed in some ways, the other one is flawed in different ways, and there's no perfect or ideal sort of kind of like a system, right?
Do you think the readings that the West made in the beginning of this conflict, expecting that Russian economy would crumble in a few days, and
yeah, that's all propaganda, right? And I'm
okay,
saying it very openly from very beginning. It was all propaganda.
yes,
The Russian economy is suffering mightily. And you saw from the numbers I presented, when things
yes,
falling down by 50-60% in the economy, and it's a key things, right? Like production of whatever. Cars is done. Like there's
yes,
no car Russia right now.
yes,
No personal cars. And like trucks are down, well, like 60 or 70%. You understand that the economy is basically grinding to a halt. So
yes,
they are suffering, but that's also, again, it goes back to the flaw of Russia, that Russia is the inside of Russia there is a terrible oppression, so you cannot have your own independent business. So everybody who can do something, they flee to the West from Russia, right? So there's a huge drain of brain and entrepreneurial resources because the business will be taken away from you by KGB essentially. If you're becoming sort of important enough or profitable enough, it will be through basically illegal ways. Do you see what I mean?
yes. And what about
And so now Russia comes to the situation when, like, okay, the West stopped us. The only thing that really works is the stop of transfer of technology, right? And management and organizational system. That really starts to crumble Russian economy itself because it is dependent on the West. Because you can in unfree economy, in like, well, and I'm not saying that the West is perfectly free, but it's freer relative to Russia, right? And the important is relative situation in this situation. And so in unfree economy, you cannot have new sort of technology and new developments. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, yes, yes. I understand, but I wanted to ask you about also if even being damaged this economy of Russia, and I'm asking you this because I've went through some of your analysis on your channel about this the economy side. And do you think, despite all these shortcomings, the drop on the manufacturing of automobiles and other industry, do you think that they have the capacity to turn it around? Because they seem pretty confident that they have.
I think the reason they're confident because they have nuclear power in their pocket.
In medium terms, like redirect, try to get parts from other places.
It doesn't really work from what I'm seeing. I mean, it works in a way that's not sort of, call it sustainable, not where you have normally functioning economy, right? It's more like, okay, so like I mentioned this about the auto parts, right?
Yes.
They cost 2-3 times more than they used to.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So your maintenance of the car goes to 3 times more. I mean, and they like you have line, you have like you cannot really like live normal way in many ways. And this is not just, if it were just like, okay, this is one area where it hits you, but in all other areas the same is happening, something similar is happening.
How about the domestic powering up domestic production?
But that's the whole point that I'm trying to make you. They pushed away all people who are creative entrepreneurs who want to do things. like if I'm starting a business and I want, like, I would not do it in Russia because I know it will be taken away from me. I'll go somewhere else. And they lost a lot of people, and Ukraine actually lost the same way. There's a similar problem here in many ways.
Yes. But for example, can we do now a short comparison between the two economies, the Ukrainian and the Russian? Because you said in, I think it was, if it wasn't your last video, it was the previous one, about the state of debt of the Ukrainian economy. This is not comparable to the Russian economy, which has gold reserves and works. It doesn't traditionally works with deficits. And can you do a brief analysis and comparison?
I'm just gonna repeat something similar. This is you more asking about the financial side and just generally management at the high level. The Russian economy was managed very intelligently and prudently because the Russian leadership up until now, about 2 weeks ago, was very pro-market. So I mentioned this long time ago that in Russia there are two sort of kind of like rivaling approaches to the future. One is sort of communist, and the other one is like market, but like Russian empire, like sort of like imperialist.
Yes, nationalistic.
No, imperialist.
No, imperialist.
Because that's the difference. Nationalist is like, okay, you want to just be in your country and you don't want foreigners, but you don't go and conquer other places, other resources, and everything. You just, in many ways, at least, it's better for the stability of the world, because if you're nationalist, you're just dealing with your own things in your house. You're not bringing your problems to other houses on the street.
You mean isolationist type of society?
Yeah, it's more isolationist. Yeah, that's probably fair words to say. So this is more imperialist, and Putin is sort of that line of thought. He's imperialist and so on. But it's always a fight. It's never like, oh, we made this decision and we just always stick to it, right? There's always discussion. Okay, do we switch to the other one? Do we still stay the course? And from the beginning, he was staying the course of the market economy. And so he was managing, well, not he literally, but the people who were responsible, who he appointed, very responsibly Russian economy. They were, they did not have like budget deficits, which is what killing the West in general and makes it so rotten in many ways.
Yes, producing bubbles.
Right, exactly. So he was like, okay, we need to actually have a, how you call it, the opposite of it, like profit. So economy has to be, how to say, what's the opposite of the deficit?
Surplus.
Surplus, right. We need to live with a surplus, so our expenses are lower than our income, which is a normal way how you would live your own personal life, hopefully. Not everybody, actually. That's a problem, that people in the West also started living that wrong way of like, hey, we're going to borrow credit card debt, or we're going to borrow against the houses and stuff. This is more so in the US as opposed to probably Europe.
Yes.
But that's also, in fact, this kind of like, rotten management of the government infected like the view of people. They're like, okay, we're also gonna, be profligate and just spend what we don't earn, anyways.
Yes.
And that's a part of the problem why the West in such a difficult situation right now, right? Because if you do that way, it cuts off opportunity to, to fight. Right?
And how were things managed in Ukraine, especially after
the same as the West? Let's borrow the debt. Let's do this debt binge, and we just ever increasing pile of debt. So in about 2003, Ukraine had close to zero debt, like literally, like maybe like a couple billion, like something like insignificant. Over like this 20 years, or like in 19 years or whatever, 18 years, it got to like 100% of GDP. So it become like a Greece, probably like Portugal.
Yes, Portugal is over 100% of GDP.
So something similar, like become like really sick.
Yes.
Right, and the most of it was looted by the government officials. So what we see, let's say Sri Lanka, is exactly prime example of where it all ends up in the end if things don't change.
Yes,
because that's what they were doing. The guy was basically, borrowing from whatever, from international markets, creating fake prosperity in the country. When the sort of international situation changed and he can borrow, everything collapsed.
Yes.
And this is exactly, unfortunately, the path. And Ukraine is going in that direction right now with its like terrible government.
Going back to the Ukrainian military, as we discussed, as you mentioned, the differences between 2003 and now, it seems that the Ukrainian military, despite all the economic problems in Ukraine, despite this all, seems to have started this war, and correct me if I'm wrong, in a very good shape.
No. First of all, let's make sure, because it sounds like the Ukraine started the war.
No. In the start of this war, this war, that's what I meant.
No,
in the beginning of this war,
yes. No, it was terrible shape.
Oh,
it was terrible. So let's put this way.
Okay.
2003, it was maybe in bad shape, like as a morale of the troops was low, because they were like paid terribly, like nobody who is capable would want to be there. But it had a lot of equipment, heavy equipment, what I mean, not just like rifles. Like that's like what I'm telling is like tanks, like aircraft.
Ukrainian made tanks, wasn't it?
Was inherited mostly from the Soviet Union, but Ukraine had a large plant in Kharkiv that was making tanks.
This T-64 model.
Yeah, T-64, exactly. So that was creation of this Kharkiv plant. And so, but it had that equipment, and that creates enough of the deterrent for the Russia, because they understand if they invade, there's enough of popular support, they will jump into the equipment and start fighting, and it's going to be very terrible for us. Because and at the same time, Russian army was also in poor state in terms of it was also terribly paid. There was it was in horrible state as well. But they also had tons of equipment, but the worst thing, they didn't have motivation either.
Because I keep hearing about these battalions that have been trained through the past 8 years, NATO standards, NATO.
No, it's all I don't want to just discuss that there, because it will, create more allegations of Russian propaganda and so on.
But please, this is the thing, and sometimes it's difficult to have the both points of view. I'm sure
and it doesn't really help, in many ways, Ukraine right now. But honestly, that training is inadequate. It's a training for the war, like in Afghanistan, right, where you don't have real enemy, right? You just going in, trying to find this like 10 Taliban people. And basically what I'm saying, it's not, that training is not designed for real true war. Those wars are not real wars, like all of this, Syria, and I'm saying, I'm not saying that those people suffering there, but in Libya, it's not real true war, because the opposite side is absolutely weak, right? So that's, let's say, the switchblades, they are so it's the total government boondoggle of wasting tons of money for something that's super ineffective. Meaning, if you take the price of it, it costs a fortune. What it does is very little. So you cannot fight the war with that kind of stuff. But the most important is the training. Training is completely, because the UK, US army, they were fighting all those super weak contenders. So they sort of adapted to that. Oh, we're just fighting weak contenders. And when they, and so the training is reflecting that. You see what I mean? And so when they train that Ukrainian, staff, they learn wrong things. And that's a problem in Ukraine, that they don't have critical thinking to actually realize that this is wrong. Not wrong, but it doesn't help. You learning, you may learn about the same way about the bars. How is this going to help you on the actual, front line is not going to help you. And this is where the problem with all of that. So that training is and a lot of it is on a check mark on the paper. Oh, we trained, where's the people And there's a problem with all of this. So they train those people, and then because then starting from about like 2016 in Ukraine, the paying army was bad, and it was like they see there's nothing going on, you're just standing like on that front line doing nothing. So a lot of good people, they just said goodbye, quit. So you spend a lot of money and time training, and they just quit. So you just it's like putting water in a sand in Sahara.
I understand what, because
not to mention that the water in the beginning is wrong water. So it's like it's wrong on many levels.
But for example, the Russians have been unable to push effectively the Ukrainians away from the front lines in the Donetsk outskirts. This has to mean that the Ukrainians have some degree of operational efficiency over there, and resilience and capacity of
but it's not because of the NATO training. So what you're attributing is it's not because, it's because people were on the front line and they realized they need to dig trenches, they need to build bunkers with concrete, with metal, reinforced, so you cannot destroy them with artillery easily. And they were building every sort of like rotation comes and improves it over whatever 5 or 6 years. You build up enough of the strengths there.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yes.
So that's not what NATO is teaching you. They're not teaching you to dig in, to create bunkers,
okay,
to create strong defenses. So it's completely, that's what I'm saying. It's not in many ways not relevant. Well, they teach you how to whatever, like totally not like they did not even teach how to use these javelins and laws efficiently. So there was a lot of problems where people did not know how to use them and misuse them, or it didn't misfire because like there's a problem with the batteries there, and they got killed because like there's it's totally,
I heard about that. Yes.
It totally wrong stuff. Like in so it's just bureaucracy. So the best thing to describe it is bureaucracy, right? It's like some stuff in NATO said like check mark. And actually I'll tell you this. So I spoke or something with someone who is doing like actually they trying to create like better unit in Ukraine. And so they said that we actually don't invite this NATO trainers. We actually hire private trainers from like literally like a private businesses who train them because they useless. This is coming from person who is fighting on the ground, who is a commander of a unit.
Okay, that's very
the commander of a battalion.
Okay,
and they asking like, hey guys, please give us money so we can pay the trainers. So like Ukrainian citizens. So they do support so like that's the best answer you can have, that they are useless.
Okay,
they just there to earn the money, like all of this NATO officials basically.
Okay, that is it's very important to hear people from the ground, from the Ukrainian side, with real information. That's very valuable, and I had no idea. I always thought that this the continuing of the struggle, the prolonging of this fight was due to this all this NATO training in the last 8.
God. If they stopped that training, that would be the best thing for Ukrainian army. Okay. The best thing for Ukrainian. It actually would make Ukrainian army a little bit more successful because people, they have this kind of like, oh, NATO, they teach us some kind of some magic
okay.
Some special voodoo things, and we're gonna become invincible. They learn these things and they are largely irrelevant, and then they go and the reality is so 180 degrees different.
So you think you think the training on the Russian side is much more efficient for this kind of war? You mentioned in
yeah, I guess you're right. This is old Soviet training is better. Yeah, you're right about that, because old Soviet training is essentially based on the experiences of World War II and World War I, and that's why I'm saying this is replay of those two wars. So that's the most relevant training you can have. That's true.
Okay, and you talked about in your channel about the numbers present in the conflict, And you mentioned something, correct me if I'm wrong again, is something about 130,000 Russians.
Well, it depends. It fluctuates. It's never,
well,
okay,
more or less.
all the time.
Okay.
It was more at the beginning, right? It was 200. Then it dropped to like about 160, 150. It might be as low right now as 130. It might be. It's also, it's not like a, like a Russian head of Russian general staff sends me a report every night, right?
Yes, yes, of course.
It's all very, how to say, anecdotal evidence, but you can see that like it might be still like it may not be 130, maybe it's 140, you know what I mean? But the point is it's less. The key is not exactly know perfectly the number, but to know the direction. And the point directionally that the Russian army right now on the ground is probably plus minus 75% of Ukrainian army.
Okay. Minus
plus maybe
minus 80%. Okay, more or less
maybe
okay.
80, maybe 82, maybe even 72, but somewhere oscillating in that range.
And right? why do you think Russia doesn't deploy a significant number of forces, like, for example, to end the conflict sooner? Or why do you think that is on the part of the Russians?
I don't know. It's still hard for me to. I have some guesses, but I'm myself not sort of like saying like I'm still can poke in my own sinking holes. So it just I don't feel like it's thoughts that are like good thoughts that I can share. There's a lot of holes, and it's you can say that maybe this is right, that there is not huge actual support and willingness to sacrifice in the Russian society itself, maybe because on the surface they all support the, like, not all, but let's say 70% of the population does, right?
So those figures are actually accurate about this, the Russian population support,
more or less. But the same thing is like saying, like, sitting and watching it on TV, but then the other thing when it's like, okay, go and die, and then support drops to 10%.
Okay. I know what you mean.
It's like, yeah, I like to watch it on TV, how Russian army is crushing Ukraine. It's all wonderful, and I'm for it. But when I need to personally sacrifice, well, okay, sorry. As for as a guy,
that's a fraction of the. Okay, I understand. But
so that's probably what's going on. But it's hard. Like, it's still, it's still very, how to say, very speculative. It's not like I know it for sure, or at least like 95% I'm certain of that, right?
I believe you follow the reports because you obviously understand the language. You follow the reports of the military reports of the Ministry of Defense of Russia. And
oh no, actually, this is the only thing that I don't follow.
Oh, okay.
Because they are so useless. Not because I don't like. I would follow, like, if they were useful, or at least there was something you can take from there. But they are so horrifically useless that even in Russian side, even it was in the Russian sort of community, like military community, everybody's laughing at those. They are so useless.
How do you? That's. I'm again surprised. I must confess, I'm again surprised because I have this. I had the feeling that those reports were more accurate than the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense reports.
That is actually also flawed and terrible, but there is sort of grains of useful information there. But they also, like, I'm not saying take at face value either.
No, of course.
They all as if I say, yeah, they're both horribly terrible. Versus, like, in Russian side, there's literally zero useful information. In Ukrainian, it's like 2% of useful information.
Okay, so for example, when they say that they're, for example, right now they're almost taking Seversk and the Ukrainian army is withdrawing from Seversk, this is not believable, or
this is lie. But let me just break for a second. I need to run to the toilet.
Yeah, of course, no problem. I'll be addressing the audience in the meanwhile. Yes, Ruth and Jota Silva, thank you for your comments. I will actually ask this question that you put out there in the chat box of Mike from Russia to confront a little bit the opinions of the perceptions of what's going on in Russia from Mike and war in Ukraine, which it's like I said in the beginning, he wanted to remain anonymous, and I respect that. And the live stream today intends to be different, to give a different perspective, so that my viewers hopefully can take their own conclusions. I'm very surprised with with some of the things that I've heard today, but I respect all opinions nonetheless, and I think it's important to not to close your ear to other opinions that you might not like. And I thank War in Ukraine for being here with me today, because it's always a treat when you can have someone that stands on the ground where the whole thing is happening.
So, even if I'm back, and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, I was just addressing the audience here, and because one of the people I've interviewed recently in past week or so, it was a gentleman called Mike. He's from Britain, and he actually he works in IT, and he moved from Britain to Russia, and he lives in St. Petersburg, and he has this YouTube channel called Earl Grey. And I wanted to interview him because as a Westerner living in St. Petersburg, the objective was to feel his perception on the economic problems from the inside, and his own perspective of his own job and his own earnings with all these sanctions, and of course his own perspective on the politics in general, because he has a YouTube channel, also comments news and etc. And he says that of course the sanctions have affected Russia, but he says that it actually is going quite well. And when people asked him that why wouldn't he leave Russia, he says this is probably the safest place to be with all this economic mess. I wouldn't want to go back to Britain and pay high gas prices.
I mean, this is perspective.
Yes, of course, it's one perspective. I will tell you
this. I can say that this is maybe because look, he's not seeing it because he's not in a way. By the time these problems hit their end consumer, it means that things are already kind of really burning.
Yeah.
So
true,
in a way, think about people and the whole society is economy is a trunk, and we all just end nodes or leaves on a tree. And the problem is that the burn is going on in this trunk right now. So you may still have leftover juice that goes to the leaves to keep them going, and they don't see that internal problem that's going on inside of the economy at large. But I can tell you, if the amount of steel that's being steel production goes by 40%, this is not a joke.
Yes,
you have to, regardless, when the auto manufacturing stops, it's not a joke, right? When glass manufacturing drops like crazy, 50% or whatever it was, 60%, and I can keep going, everywhere you look, it's not 2%, 5%.
Yeah, the usual fluctuations.
Yeah, exactly, where even let's say 10%, that's already called in the West depression, or I think 20%, I don't remember. It's 30, 40%, 50, 60%. That's this is collapse, and it's grinding to a halt. So this is not just this is just dropped at 50%, and then we're gonna stabilize there and maybe gradually grow. No, that's not gonna happen, and this will continue if this things the way they are. So what he just how to say, he just not aware of that system, where he got into, what he got into. He may pay with his own life in the end. So it does look okay for right now, because yes, gasoline is fine, and he has electricity. Russia so far has food.
Yes.
So on surface, and like there's still internet. I mean, even though the Facebook is blocked, and it looks like actually YouTube is gonna get blocked there, because Russia is keep fighting Google, and they probably will get eventually like, screw you, we'll just block everything and stop everything.
Do you think that will be possible, that YouTube will be blocked in Russia?
Oh, I mean, they blocked Facebook already. And
yes, that I knew.
So why the problem with YouTube, that Facebook is kind of like almost useless and distraction. It's actually cost and expense for the society. It's waste of resource. Versus actually YouTube and Google, the search engine, and even yes, it is censored. It's very. I can actually see the censorship in on my channel. I didn't realize, because there are comments there, and I always allow all comments, right? So everybody can comment, as soon as I see people pushing just stupid, mindless Russian propaganda, I block them. But I open comments to everybody. Like, you can write whatever you want. It actually, Google blocks a lot. Like, I didn't see that. Like, they call it hold it for review. And I didn't realize it at first. And there's like tons of normal comments. So it's actually very like censorship driven system, by the way. But nevertheless, it has a lot of value, because there is a lot of useful information on YouTube, educational, right? And it's very important for the society to function. Yes. And also search is less, because Russia has Yandex. So in many cases, Yandex sometimes is better actually than.
Yes, true. I use Yandex sometimes.
right, and even Bing is better than Google in terms of search. So that's what monopoly does to you. It destroys you from within.
Yes,
but there is no contender so far for YouTube, and that's unfortunate. Actually, there is nothing. So nobody came up with. Literally, it's not that difficult to come up with that. Like technology-wise, it's not difficult to make.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but I would like to read the comment. It's obviously a provocation towards you, but if you forgive me for letting this pass.
I'm very difficult to provoke.
So
I have thick skin.
David K. Elkins.
Oh, is that the same person that's saying that I am a globalist and all of that stuff?
He retracts that comment
about
being a globalist label.
But I'm not a communist.
No, and now, but
I am very anti-communist, because I actually live and I have seen it. Like, well, not literally me, but my parents, my grandparents. So they lived, and I know the story of horrors of it. So, but okay, go ahead.
Okay, and so, and this is I read I read the whole thing, so I don't miss out anything that he wants to say. Let your guest know that I retracted my globalist label. I have a real problem with him making assertions that those with whom he disagrees as being paid by Russia. Should we say that he's obviously being paid by the NATO US through Zelensky? I think not. So he's calling out some of your arguments when you say, for example, people like Tulsi Gabbard or John Mearsheimer are being are assets.
They are Russian assets. Like I still stand by that, because I think factual explanation of how it works and what their end goal. But you heard me talking about this uselessness of this NATO training and all of that. Like, I don't think you would, someone who is paid by he calls NATO or whatever would say that, right? Or Democratic Party, because I'm very critical of that, right? So I am pro what is right. Pro-truth, let's put this way.
Okay.
And you can see I said that when I do the videos, I allow all comments. I don't.
That's true.
Set settings like, whatever. I allow everybody, but like sometimes just people there are coming just to put the propaganda stuff. Basically, there is this, like Wagner mercenaries, the guy who owns,
yes,
he
yes,
doesn't own them, but he is sort of like the manager of that, Prigozhin. So he has also like a troll factory in St. Petersburg, by the way. So there's like literally like a high-rise building where they hire people and they just do all of this comments and stuff. So I feel like sometimes they just come to basically make this propaganda comment, and that's it. There is no value add. There is no desire to engage to actual discussion. So it's like someone comes to your property and defecates on it, like pees on it and poops on it, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
I block those people. But that's it. Like if there was someone from actually from like Buryatia. It's in Russian. It's like almost far east, next to Mongolia in Russia. So he was. I still remember his name, Dmitry, because there was a 5th Tank Brigade, and which is from Buryatia, and there are a lot of Buryats there. So he was kind of like, how to say, fan of the of the war and interested, and he would try to explain his views, and and they were wrong views in my view, because like, okay, you are like, you are Slavs, you are slaves of us, like all of this.
Okay, okay, that kind of speech, I understand.
But I'm okay. I'm accepting it. I'm not like, I didn't block him, by the way. He just disappeared because the 5th Brigade got beaten down and was brought back to Buryatia and wasn't victorious for him. They are actually back now on the front line. But what I'm trying to say, I'm not blocking if someone is, even if I think they're, and I actually discussed with him, like, I engaged in conversation with him, and he was, and I saw that he was responding. So I don't block those people, but as I said, like, I do block people who just push mindless propaganda, because it's not helping anyone.
Okay, and one thing I would like to ask you, because I can see that you are very critical of the management done by the government inside Ukraine, and you've been releasing information about the recent scandals which led to the release of the two officials, the head of the SBU, and I'm sorry, I can't recall her name.
Attorney General. She's an Attorney General for the entire country. Yeah.
And do you think that at some point Ukraine risks collapsing from the inside?
Yes, that's why I'm saying it, because that's the biggest risk actually to Ukraine. Okay. Not losing on the front line, but collapsing from within, from this incompetent government. That's a big, in my view, this is actually a bigger threat than the Russian invasion.
Okay.
To Ukraine.
Do you think
to existence of Ukraine?
Do you think the right sector groups and associated groups with this kind of political view hold a lot of political influence, and what is their role in this political environment inside Ukraine, and at which point can they influence any kind of process?
Their role is useful idiots. That's what I would say. That openly. That's their role. Their role is really driven by definitely not like, there's no really, like, what you say, like true right wings and whatever, like Nazi, like, there's no, this is not in Ukrainian DNA in the first place. Ukraine was never invading country. Do you see what I mean? So never had any colonies, never invaded anyone in the first place, like throughout its history. So did not invade anyone. It was always on the defensive, defending its territories, and in most cases unsuccessfully, against other invaders that tried to basically exploit the resources of the country. So it's like literally not what you say about this, like call it like what they say, like right wing and Nazi. They are more of the isolationist, like
yes,
sort of like
a national isolation,
nationalists that I want to isolate, don't want anyone, but they don't want to go anywhere. We're just going to live in our own country, and we just don't want anybody else here. We just want to have like our own country. That's more of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And even then, they not like they not like there's nothing even close to like Nazi, let's just exterminate everybody. It's only like, okay, you are saying like, I want to have a, you know, like Russia here, or I want to have a communist here. Then it becomes like, okay, yes, this is war right now. So like because this is what's not being reported, but Russia is doing a lot of cleansing, literally killing people on the conquered territories. So like I had like a conversation actually today with someone who is fighting on their like near Kharkiv front line there, and so basically someone who he was fighting in like 14, 15, he was on conquered territories like Kharkiv region, and he did not, I don't know why, he also quit, right? Because I told you about this situation about from 2016, everybody who was really worth something just quit because they saw that the army is going to nowhere, you're just wasting your life there. And so he quit, and he was doing his own like sort of personal civil life, whatever he was doing, I don't even know.
Okay.
And he's kind of relatively old person, like 50 or something, 55.
Okay.
At this point, at this age. And so he was living there, and the area was captured by Russians. And so he actually escaped from that territory, like just like came out like today or yesterday. And he reports that they all list and they go after people who served in the Ukrainian army. So they first killed all of them, he says, in most villages, and now they're going after their families and killing the families.
But
and this is done by this. This is not to exactly how it works. It's not done by like actual Russian troops. And I explained this like probably like in April when like at the beginning, that the way this whole terror system works is it's not necessarily by Russian troops. There are actually like Russian guards and Kadyrov troops part of it. And there's even like I think like 46 Brigade. I show it in Mariupol. Basically, they are troops that are like militarized police that actually tasked with the idea of cleansing the captured territories. So the first pass goes, Russian troops go, they conquer territory, and then they send this occupational troops that do cleansing. So similar like in the Nazi Germany, right? So first Wehrmacht goes, and then SS troops come and they search out like Gestapo, and they just
yes they do
the same idea.
They do civil control. Do you have any, because this is very serious allegations, and have you seen any proof from this, or do you take his word for it?
I heard it from other areas as well, that they had lists and they were going like where near when they were near Kyiv. And that's why there's a lot of leakage from from Ukrainian top, where they had lists, literally lists of people who were served in Ukrainian army, and they were knocking on the doors here, like near Kyiv, and tried to catch them. And a lot of people just, they ran away, right? They didn't catch them, and then they were not long enough here near Kyiv. And so they were not as successful in the cleansing. But that area, it's near Izum. So if you look at the map, like Kupiansk, all of that area, they control for about already most.
Yes, I'm aware of the. I follow your channel and I follow other channels. I'm aware of the.
So they had plenty of time, right, by now, to do that. So, and they actually even by the way, they actually very unintelligent. They actually even show more sort of peaceful videos when they catch like pro-Ukrainian people on their territories, and they basically force them to actually then speak into the camera and say, I was wrong, I love Russia, and things like that. And actually, in one case, that was like complete mistake. It was really stupid mistake of them. Is the guy was actually even with the connected like electric wires to his ears, and you saw the blood coming out of his nose, and you see the difficult state of the guy. And I don't know why that was like total dumb mistake.
Was Was that on any like Telegram channel or something?
Yeah. On the Russian propaganda Telegram channel, saying like, "Hey, this is how we deal with like all
what channel
Ukrainian,
is this?
Like Nazis or whatever they call, like whatever the name.
Is it translated in English or is it in
No, it's all Russian. The English is not a language in the former Soviet Union. People don't really like speak English language.
Yes, okay, but actually,
I can try to find that. Like I can, it was a while ago. It was about months and a half, and it was somewhere in Kherson region. That's what I remember. It was very weird. I was like, wow, it's literally stupid what they do. They hurting themselves basically.
Okay.
There are like I can maybe actually even I don't know how can you share files here?
We can share files on Google
yeah
Meet, yes.
I don't see like in the messaging systems. I don't see how you can share through this. Hold on, maybe I can. Oh yeah, I think I found this like three dots probably.
Yes.
No.
Let me just.
Yeah, I don't see the ability to share files. Pictures.
I actually have
shared with you some. When there's allegation of the Nazi stuff, I can tell you there is actually some of the units in the Russian army are more like not more like literally like Nazi type of stuff. Hold on, just a second.
You can send it.
Maybe I can just drop it. No, it doesn't work.
No, you can attach it by email actually.
Oh, well.
That would be easier because it's been our channel of communication.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I can. Oh, actually, I can send it to you. Bunch of. Yeah, I guess I can do that right now. But in any case, this is not what it sort of seems on the surface. It's actually far away from that. And this is just, in many ways, just kind of like how to say, just propaganda coverage as well from the from the Russian side.
What can you tell me a little bit about the accusations on the banning of? Well, they're not. I think they're actual facts on the banning of Russian language in Ukraine.
On the banning of Russian language?
Yes.
People speak Russian language like in Ukraine as much as.
I mean it on schools and from official.
Yeah, like I mean, like you don't have like whatever Arab language in Portugal, so. In Ukraine, we
have Arab roots on our language.
no, I know, I understand that, but you don't sort of do the language that the country. Well, let's say I don't know, you say U.S. was invading Portugal, you wouldn't be teaching Portuguese language. Sometimes I agree with that. That some of them are totally, how to say, like. Wrong, like things like removing from the literature stuff. Like you need to be thoughtful what you do, not like knee-jerk reaction type of things. So I can send you just send you a couple files. So
you don't have to do it now.
I just send it to you so you have it. So,
okay. We're on live stream. I have.
So basically, So the way you really need to understand what happens here, it wasn't like, oh, Ukraine, all of this Russian language here out of blue or sort of naturally out of competed Ukrainian language. So the background here is you were like totally prosecuted for about 200 plus years for speaking Ukrainian language.
Okay.
And sometimes you executed or go to the concentration camp. So it was oppression for at least 200 years. Well, since about like early 1700s. So as a result of that, you have a lot of Russian language here, and there was also ethnic cleansing. And I don't want to go in detail about it, like on the channel, because I don't want to.
Yes.
I don't want to switch it into like
historical
fight.
Yes. It was just talking about because someone mentioned on the comments that.
So what it is, they just say they're not like, oh, you're not allowed to teach Russian language. That like government does not finance like study of Russian language.
Okay.
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 So that's what it is. Like the government, there's no, because it was actually I was studying, it was a dual language. Like all schools were dual language. Even if I'm Ukrainian, I had to study Russian language. Like because I had to. Like Russian language, Russian literature, like everything. And most of the schools were for, like, you had no choice, but you have to go to Russian school.
But for example,
so that creates the and then not only that, but also culturally what they teach you there, that you're part of Russia. So that basically they do social engineering of the population. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, but concerning the language, for example, in the Portuguese curriculum, you have to learn English.
No. This was, yes, I understand, but because English is call it and you had to learn also English, or like before it was German. So that at least there is a logic there, right? Like, but it wasn't like, oh, it was decision, my decision personally, or the parents' decision. You were forced to do that, or you have problems. Do you see what I mean?
Well,
it's very different situation versus, yeah, like government creates this English language, which is totally different country to you, that has nothing, you're not invaded by the US or UK. You're not
well,
by the UK.
we can discuss that.
Like, okay, no, I get it. Like you dislike a lot of things, but about what's going on in Portugal, it's very clear. But what I'm trying to tell you is the solution is not to burn the house.
No, of course. No, I agree with
but
that. But
actually fix it.
Yes,
that's what Mishheimers and Tulsi Gabbard's, that's what they proposing. Let's burn the house because we don't like it. So that's a part of the problem, and that's what, right now in Ukraine, I could, if I look at this government, I'll say, well, let's burn this house because the government is terrible. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, okay, Ukraine needs to fix itself, right? And it's coming. It has to come from inside of Ukraine, from population. You cannot come and instill some kind of like prosperity on population that's not willing to do right things for themselves. That's what happened in Afghanistan, right? That's why it fell so far, like because they were just basically milking US, basically.
Yes, true. They
corrupt regime, and everybody was happy there, milking it, and
yes,
and then US was realizing the war is coming. They had to exit because they overstretched.
Yes,
and they need those resources inside of the, to sort of the, they saw this war with Russia coming. So, and then we haven't even touched the China. That's a much bigger problem.
We of course, yeah, we haven't.
That's where everybody's gonna like truly may feel the burn of the war on themselves. So that's another thing that's potentially coming in a year or two, or maybe 3. I don't know. But it's like the writing is on the wall, and everybody should be thinking about that. That's going to be a bigger problem.
Yes, very bigger problem. China is the manufacturing powerhouse of the world.
I know, but that's because again, that's the economic policy error, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, all of the manufacturer was forced out of the, out of the US, out of Europe as well, out of here as well, by the way.
Yeah.
That's part why Ukraine is such a terrible economic shape.
Okay. One, because we are, I think with the first part and now the second part, I think we believe we little bit over 2 hours.
That's fine.
Long.
I'm kind of like already kind of like, hey, I'm in, so I'll just kind of like so we all kind of like clean on it, and at least you hear my opinion and my
no, of course, and I'm
it's obviously everybody in the end makes his own decision.
Yes, right? and I'm pleased that that's the one of the things that I'm very you might say strict in this channel, being in English or in Portuguese, is I invite people that I disagree completely with, so because we need to talk it out, we need to hear each other's arguments, and so it's for me it's what makes sense. And I try to.
I'm not a big believer in talking it out, because I've seen this, and it ended up anyways in the war.
Well, but hopefully
it works better in where you are, but I'm very skeptical of that talking it out type of stuff.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I'm just sharing with you, not because like I want to like. It just I've seen how it all plays out.
I know, but you know, the Communist Party in Portugal
is much better than elsewhere in the
no,
world.
it's a demo. It's actually a very upholder of democracy, and so I follow that.
Look, I cannot change your thinking. I think I'm pretty certain is life will change your thinking if Communist Party will come to the power. Hopefully not in Portugal. You'll see it from the sort of like first your own personal experience.
Well, I don't know. I cannot agree, but it's okay. It's
okay. That's okay. That's why I'm saying is like okay. Look,
but because there is history behind us, and that's but that's not the point of that's not the reason I wanted to chat with you at all.
I agree. Let's not go in that direction because it's probably not interesting to the viewers.
No.
What's really going on right now? I think that's more important right
now. Just one more thing. That my channel is not monetized at all, so I serve no interest, no purpose other than my own curiosity. I forgot to say this in the beginning, so I'm saying
no, that's fine. I mean, I'm not expecting any money from you. I'm not doing this for the money. I do feel like my work is. I would like to at least get paid somewhat because it is, huge amount of effort. So, and if it's available,
yeah, I know. I will have to just for the. I mean, loosening up a little bit the conversation. I'll have to today at midnight. I'll have to get in my shift, and I'll do it again midnight tomorrow. I work in the industry and I work shifts, and that's what pays this. That's what supports my channel.
Right. So and that's what I'm saying is like okay, yeah. But regardless, maybe for you it's like just 2 hours here. I don't know how you are, but like my take on this, if I'm spending like good chunk of my time.
Yes,
and this is available. I think it's fair to be.
Yeah, no, I do not condemn. No. Yes. I understand.
That's my take on it.
Perfectly. I understand.
We may agree or disagree, but that's
no. I could not disagree with that with you because this is choice. This is the choice I've made, and if you are that is available and you are free to do that choice, and it's no problem with it whatsoever. It's just my way of thinking. I provide this. Completely free, and because I do when I just share this thought with you, when I start thinking about numbers today I'm exploiting the war, the subject of the war in Ukraine, but tomorrow I would like to talk with a local musician, for example, and so the audience will not like that shift because they are expecting they liked this show, for example. So the next one they're asking, what is this? So they want, and so I'm very working against my numbers many of the times, and so
this, that's well. I think it's actually, in my opinion, is this is actually the right way to do it because. I mean, I'm not saying to talk about like jazz because someone wants to, but if you have a common theme and some people don't like it, that's okay. And that's going to happen naturally so that you're not hostage of the audience, but you're actually trying to, share your thoughts, your opinion. And eventually you'll have people who stick around and there are naturally people who don't want to stick around. And
yes.
That's fine.
Yes. One last question about the conflict, and this is more of a predicament. So it's the value of predicaments yourself. Where do you see Ukraine? This looks like the typical question of a job interview. Where do you see Ukraine in the next 3 years?
Oh yeah, it's like such a look. Honestly, like it's super speculative, right?
Yes, of course.
And it may be total disaster. It may be part of Russia. It might be totally independent and better country. Honestly, I almost like I'm not sort of. It's almost like I call it farting in the wind. All of these predictions.
Yes, but
they're useless. Just like it's just useless. Similar to propaganda stuff. Just entertaining, useless fairy tale.
But I
don't know. I don't know.
I explain why I ask. I explain why I do this question, because there is a reason. It's not just a random. There is a reason,
because I know a lot of people ask you, but I really don't. I have a hard time understanding the logic.
Because President Zelensky in the last Euro Song Contest, Eurovision Song Contest. I'm sure you heard about that because Ukraine has won.
Yeah, I'm not watching that.
Yeah, but
Eurovision. It's a big government boondoggle. That's
yes. But the point is that Zelensky said the next Eurovision will be done in Mariupol.
He has no clue what he's saying. I mean, it's propaganda, right? Like, why would you base sort of, because it's basically, look, think about this. There's a lot of noise, right, around, informational noise. This is just informational noise. What's the point of discussing, informational noise if there is, like, it's better to discuss true signals. That's why I'm focusing on economy, because it's a true signal, right?
Yes.
On what's going on with the military-wise, it's a true signal.
Yes.
This is just entertainment and lies and propaganda, and he doesn't know where he's going to be in a year.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. He has maybe he's thinking he knows, but he's clueless. Like, he's clueless where nobody know. I have plans where I'm going to be in a year, but you know what? I also, at least I realize that it could be my wishful thinking. You see what I mean?
Okay. Yes.
At least I'm realistic about it. He doesn't even understand that he doesn't know. So you see what I mean?
Yes. I understand what you mean, and of course, if you don't want to do this,
no, I don't know. I
prediction, you're perfectly fine.
I don't know. Like, it's like, I don't want to make up something like in my view, just a lie. Like, that's just
okay. But if we think realistically, for example, we can split this up in smaller questions, like is Ukraine
better to let's split
okay,
it into
so
more realistic questions.
Okay, so is Ukraine able to stop the Russian offensive, for example? This to stall completely, like stalemate.
It's hard to say. It's so far this HIMARS system make sort of some change, some difference. They were, at least temporarily, Ukrainian army was able to stall that. But as you heard in what I say, I believe it's a temporary effect, because Russian or Ukrainian army needs much more of those. So again, this is, and who knows, is US willing to give another 50 HIMARS units? And it's not actually about those tracks, it's really about rockets. That's what really creates a difference. Who knows? I don't know. If there's decision to give that, then Ukraine can stop. The way the army right now, it's poorly trained, it's underarmed. That's not a recipe for being able to stop in the long run. I'm not talking. Yes, the Russian troops are doing this, like, they chew very little at a time.
Yes,
right?
They're grinding
these tiny pieces, and it can take another 5 years to chew up, let's say, everything that's on the eastern bank of
Don, the river, the Dnieper, yes,
river, right?
Yes,
but that's not going to be how it's going to be, because we're then extrapolating the current situation, and life is not extrapolation. That's always wrong.
True. It's not linear. It's not linear.
Exactly. That's the whole point I'm trying. It's always usually exponential, some kind of shape or form. And so it's, so far, I'm not, how to say, I'm not optimistic about their, like, future of the army. Not because I think people are willing to sacrifice, and that's what's being sort of the answer, is people, like, sacrificing their own lives. But, like, in the end, the technical superiority wins. and that's where the problem is right now. And actually knowledge, right? The skills, and skills are not being, like, I don't see strong training of Ukrainian troops, that what they really need on a mass scale, and also no actions to create weapons inside of the country, because it's capable. The country is not like, it's not like nothing against like Zimbabwe. It's not a Zimbabwe, you know what I mean? There is a lot of educated people here. There is a lot of industry, even a lot of it destroyed, but if you allow sort of freedom, economic freedom, people will build amazing things, and that's being suppressed. And that's where my biggest problem here right now.
The education system is it's a heritage of
the Soviet Union,
which they had good. You must give me that.
No, and I agree. It's the educational system. I don't know much about like Portugal. Obviously, I have no actual idea about Portugal. But what I've seen in the US, it's a horrible education system. It creates people very poorly educated. And they are. I don't see how the country plans to live for another 200 years with that educational system. I'll be honest with you.
Yes, you have the results right now showing up.
So but the problem is actually this old Soviet educational system is being destroyed, and that's why I would say I'm happy, because it's actually being destroyed with the help of Democratic Party here. That's a problem, right? And so, but for now, there's still resources from that system that can create defense and everything, but it's not being, they're not allowed to do their things, right? And so the reliance is like, oh, the NATO West will give us tons of weapons, like do this miracle weapons, and it's just not going to happen. I can clearly see that, and that's what this Ukrainian political top either doesn't realize, or or maybe they realize, but they play the game to the population in Ukraine, basically to sort of kind of like, hey, we're gonna get this support tomorrow, mañana.
Yeah. Domani. Yeah. Yes.
So that story, right?
Yeah.
But in the end, it's all about Ukrainian people, and Ukrainian people doesn't want to to live in the Russian system. It's ugly system. So
how are the casualties reflecting on Ukrainian society so far? Because I hear
they're not depressing the society. They're meaning like people not like, oh, they just how to say, fold and let's just surrender. That doesn't work that way. So in many ways, it's kind of like how it was in Germany in like whatever 43, 44, 45. It didn't made German people to surrender.
Yes, they
were like, okay, I want to be more like fighting much more stronger, hardcore. That's where I would say so far, right? If it changes, it changes. But
okay,
so
far it's been like that. Okay,
there's obviously some percentage of population, let's say whatever, like I don't know, 10-20%, maybe even up to 40. That's like, okay, we don't really care. We just want to flee the country, and that's all it is. And that's it's life. Like you have that part of the population that wants to be that way.
Yes, there are some.
And to be honest, like the way a lot of people maybe they not even that way, but they just see how inept the government is, how like these people like in the army are not prepared properly to sort of to fight. They were like feeling like, okay, you're not giving me opportunity, like fighting chance, right? So why would I want to be, there if I don't have fighting chance? So that's just very, practical, and I cannot blame them, right? Because, you just don't want to die like an idiot, basically.
I understand.
Right? Like just a target in a shooting.
Yeah, of course. Yes, I understand. Yeah. When you think about it, yes, and you think,
and that's a failure, a failure of the top of the government, right?
Okay. Who do you?
But in the end, it was elected by the citizens of Ukraine. So it's like you need to look in the mirror to see the ugliness of it, to see yourself.
Who do you think is really in charge of the Ukrainian army? Is it foreign entities, or is it Zelensky? Is it Zaluzhny?
I forgot what I don't. You see, like I'm reading this, I don't even remember exactly. I think it is. Well, formally, I mean, it's very clear it is Zaluzhny, but he's definitely have a lot of advisors. I told you I'm very skeptical of those like Western advisors.
Okay.
I don't think they are helpful, like because they themselves never fought like, and probably in I'm not expert on how it's taught in military schools in the West, but I would not be surprised that experiences of World War I and World War II were sort of like mostly removed from the curriculum in those schools, because it was kind of like, oh, it's like war of the past, this doesn't happen. So they all train in many ways in the wars of, like, what was going on in Iraq, in Syria, Libya, that kind of stuff. And that's a wrong type of war.
Yes.
In a way, you have a relevant experience when you advise.
Yes.
And so your advice from the beginning is coming from the wrong sort of thinking.
Well, I thought about that because when people have this idea in the West, I think that is my perception, at least. I think it's like this in general, that somehow the Western powers are invincible, because from Second
delusional thinking
from Second World War until now, they have been. I mean, of course, you have some examples: Vietnam War and the stalemate in Korea, okay, but those doesn't really.
I mean, look at Afghanistan, right?
But it's like
it was 20-year-old war, but
yes,
it failed.
Yes, but they have still have this feeling that we have like superiority in everything, and we just go there and we leave whenever we like, not when the enemy chooses, and things like that. But when I thought about it, I thought like, wait a minute, this is a different war. This is a frontline open war. It's not a guerrilla where the enemy can show up anywhere.
Yeah.
The enemy can see sometimes each other on either side, and then
have you facing a lot of it is right now not so much because of this artillery is
yes,
the game.
Yes,
and it's exactly how it was in World War I and World War II.
But
it's exactly the same.
Yeah, but the troops know that the enemy is there, and the enemy knows that they are there, and so and when I thought about this thing, when was the last time NATO fought a war like this?
I don't remember. I don't know.
I actually
I don't think so.
No,
that's another thing that that's going back to this NATO. It has never sort of seen trial by fire.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And
true.
We'll see if it stands up to the trial, because when I told you about that experience with Poland that was relying on the UK and France in 1939, and they suffered in the end.
True.
Because they saw that something's there and that thing wasn't there for them.
That's true.
So we'll see how it all goes. But I don't know.
Okay. Mr. War in Ukraine.
Thanks so much for inviting. It was a pleasure.
It was also a pleasure to talk to you. Some of the audience got a little bit mixed ideas now at the end when I assumed myself as being a communist. I found it.
I'm not sure what you mean by mixed ideas.
Like, no, because they were like.
Because I'm not following. I'm not on your page.
No. It's true, but it's not. It's nothing special.
I'm curious if there is like. Because I don't want to feel
because obviously they are
confused. Than
yes,
that was not the goal.
No,
of the conversation.
No. It was. This is concerning me and my position. It hasn't to do with your.
They don't think you're hardcore communist anymore.
No, it is like
you are agent of NATO now.
I don't know. It's sometimes I think some people have a hard time to believe when I say my political color, and it's not just me saying. If you knew my life, because it's public, I am elected locally by this force, so on behalf of this force. So I'm actually active in the process. It's not. And then they have a hard time thinking about how does he accept all these different opinions, or how does he stand talking to someone that has very bad idea of the things he might defend or he might be upholding. So this is the kind of things. But I tell you, I'm very much an upholder of democracy, and if the political force ever misled ever I'm missing the word in English, ever deceives me in this way, that I'm sure I'll be the first to abandon. But I don't think it will be the case. They are one of the builders of
well, unfortunately, the history of the communist sort of party, like more realistic one, not just the facade, is not really, I'd say, not really translated to the even English language to the great extent, because there is a lot of works inside of their sort of former Soviet Union in Russian language on that, on the ugly truth of it.
Yes, but I understand,
and I'm not saying like I understand your perspective, because you're thinking like you had like what fascist regime in
Portugal, yes,
but that's like like running from one fire into another fire. That's how I see that. You know what I mean? And there is a third better way, let's put this way. That's how my vision of this whole
Well, I can say only one thing before we finish, is that when the whole thing started and Zelensky started making his political tour in all the countries abroad, outside, they start delivering these speeches through video conference. He came to Portugal as well. He spared some time to do that, and to the parliament, to address the parliament. And I think the only political force that refused to be in the room while that happened was the Communist Party. So I think they pretty much agree with your views on Zelensky's government.
Well, or maybe they are. Well, look, this is not about
I'm sorry for the provocation.
No, it's not provocation. It's actually, look, I always want to sort of like disassemble provocation and make it like, okay, turn it into the truth, right? First of all, it's not about Zelensky, right? Like he is, well, in many ways, temporary person, right? He just comes and goes, and as many people before him, it's about Ukraine.
Right? Yeah. Of course, that's the bottom line. Yes.
Which again proves to my point that all of the communist parties are extension of KGB, pretty much everywhere. Unfortunately, that's just reality of it.
But KGB doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, really? Don't tell me that.
I mean, I'll be having.
Well, it's renamed. It's and if you look at the, its history, because I'm using this word KGB because at least people are familiar with it.
Okay, well, the FSB. Then you mean the FSB?
Well, FSB. Then there's a lot of them. There is a lot of this, intelligence agency of the Russian military, and then like foreign intelligence agency. There's a couple of them, 3 of them, I think. But in the end, it's all coming from KGB, and KGB wasn't named KGB. It was VCK first. Then it was changed. It's like snake shedding its skin over time to leave the negative luggage behind. So it was VCK. They killed tons of people. Then they renamed themselves into NKVD. They killed tons of people. Then they they renamed them something like MGB or something like that.
The NKVD.
And then they ended up with KGB as the final sort of during Soviet time. Then they was renamed into FSB. So it's not about how it's not about the form. It's about the essence, about the system that exists. And that system is there. Okay. There's no question. It's just changing the names. That's okay. That's not surprising. That's very low. And that's what it also means, that these people are intelligent and extremely dangerous, because they're not doing it in a dumb way. They do bad things. They change the name. It's like, well, actually, in this case, there's like a political party in Ukraine. They did horrible things, very corrupt things. Well, what they did then, okay, for the new election, they changed the name. and then population needs that.
Well,
you know, people learn from
yes.
KGB how to do things,
Okay.
and it works.
Okay,
It
maybe I'll become aware that I am an asset.
You can give now political consultations in your own country how to come clean. You just change your name, but then continue the same thing. And most of the people will just like, okay, that's a new shining star.
Okay, I have to be honest. I have a very hard time. Assimilating that information. I do not say believe, because I do not. I'm not like 100% deterministic on my views. I leave space to learn. That I think so.
I think that's the most important. It's always self-doubt, and that's where a lot of the analysis coming. You have self-doubt. That's the most important part. That you're not part of some kind of sect.
No,
that's where the sect's coming from. There is no anywhere self-doubt where I'm doing right thing or wrong thing, and that's the whole point is to always self-doubt and self-reflect based on that self-doubt.
Thank you. I will ask you one very, very, very last thing. Are you available for future conversations?
Yeah, we can do it sometime a little bit late, like probably in a month or so. I do. I mean, you understand. It's like also.
Yeah, of course. It's just
I do want to sort of share the thoughts, because there's a lot of my motivation in this is like I would like to counter this propaganda stuff and kind of share different approach and thinking, and this is another outlet for me, your channel. So I'm willing to do that, but let's just it is time, and it's I need to do other things as well.
Yeah, of course. No, but I'm just
sometimes in a month or so. And you probably don't want me to be there all the time. People will get annoyed.
No. And by the way, and being completely honest, I intend to invite more people that have other views.
I'm sure. Yes. I'm just one of the many from their sort of different people. Like I have no. I'm very realistic about it.
I have to be. Please believe. Take this at face value. It's I'm 100. I try 100% to understand both sides. I do have my own opinions that I make with time, like not 100% deterministic, not like closed and that's it. But as I tend to doubt more the Western propaganda. Of course, I am aware of the Russian propaganda as well, but I tend to doubt much more of the Western intentions. I don't know if it's because I've grown in the 80s with all the American propaganda movies. I've been fed plenty of Western propaganda, believe me.
Look, but the whole point is propaganda is never there for you. It's always to harm you.
Yes,
wherever it comes from, because it's a deceit.
Yes, it's a deceit. It's not the truth. Yeah.
It's an attempt to deceive you.
It's a storytelling. Yes, it's a storytelling.
Doesn't matter who it's. If someone's trying to deceive you, by default, the person doesn't wish good for you, right?
Yeah. Yes, true.
So that's
true.
So, and I understand you being hurt or you feel hurt more by Western propaganda, but it doesn't mean that Russian propaganda is any better.
No, propaganda is propaganda. Yeah, propaganda.
It's just propaganda, exactly. Yeah. So I think the right thing is to think about this. Not to be like trying to figure out which propaganda is better or worse, but just realize like, okay, like I don't want to propaganda in the first place. I want to live in the world where things are where they are, truthful and honest. And that's what I think in the first place, where at least that was the value of the West. Like not past 20 years. I'm not saying that, but that was, or at least it was ideal, right? Where it never was like, never was perfect world. There's no question about it. But at least it was ideal. This is where we trying to get to, right? To be at least fair, honest, and stuff like that. And somehow that ideal got lost in whatever past, time. I don't know when it's got lost.
Yes, but
that's the point. And that's where what I'm saying is the problem with the West, that it lost that ideal, because it was kind of like your guiding star where to go. and now you have kind of like a full star that's being shining to you but leading you in the wrong direction as a whole, and that's a problem.
Okay, thank you for your insights.
You're welcome.
I still have a hard time not knowing a name to put, or
Okay. Let's it's just not safe. You need to understand that.
I know. I didn't want to add. I mean,
it's not like it's impossible to figure it out, but I just want to make it as hard as possible for those who don't need to know that.
How old are you, if I may ask?
I'm not gonna share that with you. I told you this is I'm not gonna share all of that information.
Okay. No
I'm not a 16-year-old, and
I know. I can. Of course, I can imagine
that. Yeah. And I'm not 18-year-old.
Okay,
right?
8-year-old.
We'll define it somewhere in that
between 16 and 80 and 18.
Between 20 and 60, somewhere in that range. I'm somewhere there.
Okay. Once again, thank you very much. Someone in the chat is saying his name is Zelensky, but
if that's easier for that person, I'm Zelensky. Okay. Right. I'm sounding like Zelensky, very similar, right?
I think the tone has to be lower.
And I'm very skeptical of Zelensky, right?
Yeah, I know.
I'm very skeptical of myself.
I know. Thank you very much once again, and I hope we can communicate in the future. Yep. We have definitely. Email channel open, and also if you want to add anything in the future and contact me,
I think I'm pretty. I was very, very upfront about. I didn't hide anything. It was very, I shared everything. I have nothing to hide. Let's put this
way. So and to
hide my identity for my personal safety.
Safety. Okay, and because you like you said, you are very critical of your own government, so it's natural that
exactly.
you do that.
So you can, you don't even know where you can get hurt from, right? So I'm sort of unpleasant person for many people in power everywhere, on the Russian side, on the Ukrainian side. So so if you're critical, it's unsafe to you, right?
Yes. So to the audience, I want to thank you for your true interest in this conversation, your true patience, and also all your comments, despite being more positive, more negative, they are all welcome. This channel has over 100 live streams, but this is the 4th one in English. I will intend to do more in English. I will go to other parts of the world. I'm intending soon I'll have something about Palestine, from the perspective of the army and from the perspective of the activists and Palestinian activists. I cannot share the date yet because I do not know. I have to contact the people, and it's not always easy. But you can count on that in the future. And please share and help this small channel to grow, not for monetary purposes. Not that I condemn them, but it's not my objective. Just want to make the information more clear to the viewers and let them think by themselves. Thank you very much. Thank you once again.
Thank you for invitation. It was a pleasure, and thank for everyone who tried to understand and really truly think for themselves.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Now it's just me. Our guest is gone. And I will finish this live stream. Thanks for watching. Please share. That would be very, very helpful. I really enjoyed your company on the chat. Thank you.